Good afternoon. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us for our Aspiring Speakers Lightning Talks event today. My name is Abby. For those of you who don't know me, I work with Barry Cranford, who's the founder of Aspiring Speakers. That is just one of about 15 different communities that is currently run by RecWorks. We, as a company, are a tech recruitment company, but we have a massive, massive difference. So we believe that recruitment really can be a force for good in the industry beyond just placing people in jobs. We have a particular focus on learning, mentoring, and personal development. If people want to learn and others want to teach or share their knowledge, we are more than happy to connect you through our communities and events. To date, we have run over 700 events for engineers, developers, students, graduates, CTOs. We've run lightning talks like these. We've run conferences, hackathons, mingles, all sorts. To date, we have made 4,000 introductions through our Meet a Mentor program, which we're really excited about. And we're looking forward to seeing where that's going to go next and get to our 5,000th introduction. As I've already said, we love to give opportunities for people to connect, and this event is part of that. If you want to know more about any of our other communities, please do ask me. You can find me on LinkedIn. My name is exactly as you see it here. Or Barry, if you know him, or Helen Lewis, if you know her. We can obviously introduce you to the different communities we've got and take it from there. We are recording this session today, and when it is ready and available, it will get sent out to you so you can recap on it if you want to. And we do share it with the group so that they can catch up if they'd like to see it as well, but couldn't get here at this particular moment in time. So we have three amazing lightning talk speakers for us today. We have Tom, Rajani and Adiron. So with no further ado, I'm going to hand over to Tom. Over to you.
Thanks, Abby. Hey, everyone. I'm Tom. So I think topic of the talk today is Web3 and the future of the internet. Conscious 7 minutes is not very much time at all, so I'll be really quick. I started as a lawyer. I worked at a law firm called Adiron and then another firm called Mishcon de slowly became one of, if not certainly in the UK, the leading lawyer in relation to crypto and AI, one of the global leading lawyers in that area. I wrote the law on blockchain in the UAE, wrote the Singaporean national strategy. Then everyone realized that actually I was quite an average lawyer, but I was good at building stuff like program. And so I was good I was average lawyer, good programmer, very good sort of strategic advisor person. And so clients slowly but surely changed the things that they were asking me. They stopped asking about the legal compliance things and they started just asking what they should do. And we started answering those questions. So fast forward to today, I run a arm of the law firm, an arm of Mishcon de called MDRX Tech. And my team is now about 40 people. I'm the only lawyer in the team. Everyone else is a software developer, blockchain engineer, data scientist, UX designer, product manager, management consultant. We're designing and building stuff for clients. Obviously, the only reason you would ever come to us rather than our competitors isn't in spite of having 1,000 lawyers in the group. It's because of 1,000 lawyers in the group. And therefore, legal complexity tends to crop up on everything that we do. One of the most legally complex technologies at the moment is Web3 and crypto assets. And that's because the nature of them challenges the way we think about communications and contracting. Contracts have been around for thousands of years. English common law systems have been around since about 1066. It has always been predicated on two very clearly defined counterparties or multiple clearly defined counterparties. And communication and contracting between those two. Clearly, crypto disrupts that. So Web3 as an evolution of the internet basically is currently a theory. Web3 has meant a number of things for over the last 10 years. If you'd have asked me what Web3 meant 5 years ago, I'd have said it was the semantic web, which is this vision of the internet evolved so that it's tagged not just by keyword but by meaning. The best example I can think of there is if you Google today, if you go on YouTube and search for country music, the first things that will come up will be videos entitled country music. On the semantic web, you could search country music and you would get interesting country music by genre rather than keyword. Web3's changed in the last 2 or 3 years, and it's been adopted by the crypto movement, who argue that actually blockchains, distributed systems, distributed ledgers underpinning the internet can mark the next stage in its evolution. And so the crypto community now refer to Web 1 as the internet of read write. You go on a website and you read what is it on there. It's relatively static. It's very useful from an information sharing perspective, but it's not particularly exciting. Web 2, we now think of as the internet of read, write, and create. And that's very much the era of the internet that has spurred development over the last 15 years, and is the phase that we're still in today. So rather than just reading and writing, you create your Facebook profile, you create your own content, and you publish that and engage with that through likes and shares and pokes and God knows what else down the years. Web3 takes all of that and says, okay, not only can you create things, but you can also own them. It is this base layer upon which you can own things, crypto assets, but perhaps far more broadly thought about than when we say crypto, we think of Bitcoin, we think of Ethereum, we think of these large networks. Instead, what we mean when we talk about ownership of crypto assets is owning everything, owning your Facebook post rather than just posting it onto the Facebook platform, owning your likes and sending them to people as property. Interestingly, it's still legally complex because the courts had a hell of a time trying to figure out whether or not that could actually be property from an English legal system perspective. There's about a 90-page report that the Law Society and the Law Commission put out. I'll spare you reading it. Answer is yes, it can. That's pretty much what it says. And there's lots of work to figure out exactly how they're going to future-proof that at the moment. But clearly, lots of fundamental legal questions to be answered. In that new reality, the internet doesn't just become the internet of information and content, it becomes the internet of value. And that is very much one of the buzzwords that accompanies the space at the moment, is this vision that in the future we can be rewarded for and be paid and pay to participate and for our participation in various things. We're right at the precipice of Web3. My personal view is that if the Web3 argument, i.e. will it be quote unquote real, will probably be clearer in the next 2 to 3 to 4 years. And I think the answer will fundamentally be driven by the Metaverse, which is a related but ultimately distinct technology. To be clear, the Metaverse can absolutely exist without Web3. Web3 can absolutely exist without the Metaverse. I don't think Web3 matters particularly without the Metaverse. And I very much hope that the Metaverse will adopt Web3 as its fundamental underpinnings. Whether or not I think it will is probably a different argument and different question altogether. But that's my whistle-stop tour on what Web3 is. I hope that's helpful.
That was fascinating. Thank you so much. Does anybody, I'm just going to open up the floor. Does anybody have any questions for Tom off the back of his talk? Go, Rajani.
Yeah, so it was very fascinating, Tom. And the NFTs, then I was thinking about NFTs because NFT is also like really popular where people are creating and they own it. And I don't know if they already use Web3 for owning NFTs, or it'll make it, Web3 is going to make it easier for owning NFTs and anything NFTs and anything you really own?
Yeah, so almost all NFTs on the market today are actually a form of crypto asset. The only thing that distinguishes an NFT from a crypto asset like a Bitcoin, or sorry, bad example, an Ethereum token, an ETH token, is the non-fungibility part. The majority of NFTs on the market are either built upon Ethereum or Polygon, which is a platform, a layer one that's built on top of Ethereum. So yeah, NFTs and Web3 go hand in hand. I personally think that most NFTs out there at the moment are a total waste of time. But if the metaverse becomes a reality, and if that metaverse is underpinned by Web3, then clearly owning unique, non-fungible things is going to be an absolutely central part of that, and then we'll see some real interesting utility.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Tom?
Yeah, I would like to ask what we mean by if Metaverse will become a reality. As far as I'm aware, there's multiple of things that they apply to Metaverse. Metaverse was a concept that came up by Snowcrash, the book, which was written years and years ago. It's nothing really new, but I would like to understand what's your perspective on that.
So the metaverse is inevitable. It's already happening. It's going to encroach on our life more and more and more and more. I have quite a broad definition of the metaverse. I don't really think about it as a place so much as I personally don't buy into this vision of like a dystopian future in which everyone plugs into the matrix and doesn't engage in their real life. I think that's nonsense. The metaverse for me is just a breaking down of the barriers between physical and digital. So for example, today, if you want to buy some clothes, you either go in store or you shop online. In the metaverse, you don't have to choose. Those two things are sort of combined, and you can do either or both, and they are sort of far more closely entwined. When I say will it become a reality, is the metaverse does not need Web3 technology to exist.
Yeah, of course.
Like Fortnite is a metaverse. It doesn't need blockchain, and so the open question that I think we'll have an answer to in the next few years is, will it adopt blockchain? I personally think if it is underpinned by distributed systems, it opens up a whole new world of very interesting possibilities, and it has all sorts of societal benefits because Meta don't own our world. But yeah, I reserve judgment on whether or not that's realistic. I'm not convinced that's how innovation works.
Thank you.
Excellent. From one fascinating talk to our next, then, I will hand over to Rajani. Over to you.
Thank you, Abby. Let me try and share.
I like this already.
Right.
Perfect.
All right. So I'm Rajani Rao. I'm a principal engineer at uBlocks, where there's one device sitting here. We buy chipsets. We build chipsets, cellular, wireless, so on and so forth. And I build systems in the cloud for these chipsets. So it's the and I like my job because it's not always about the cloud where it's infinite, because it has to work with these low power devices and low everything. Then we're talking bandwidth, which is the I feel is the best place to be. So I thought, why not talk about AWS, which we primarily use. So there's Azure and there's GCP, but when we started off ages ago, there was only AWS, and we've loved AWS since then, and we haven't looked back. So today I wanted to talk about CloudWatch, logs, log insights and metrics. You'd say metrics and insights, but yeah, they are log insights and log and metrics, which are I will come to it. So what is CloudWatch Logs in this in AWS and in the cloud platform? So you can think of it as a place where all the logs are put together and sort of sorted. So you can look at it, you can analyze it, you can visualize it, and and take actions based on it. And it's centralized, so it gives you a unified view of like your operation of the systems. We actually have plugged in our on-call rotors on this on CloudWatch Logs, and it alerts us if the systems, the customer-facing systems, are down, or there's something that is not going well in the system. Then we get the level 2 alerts depending on whether it's customer-facing or not. So it is very powerful. Often, not as highly rated, but in our company, we do use it quite extensively for all sorts of things, like I just shared. So what CloudWatch has this concept of log groups and log streams. So log groups are, if you have different applications, you may want to look at the logs. You want to collect or group the logs as log groups, right? Different applications. And within these applications, you may want to specifically just say, okay, for this one, I want to log it in this log stream. So it's another breakdown of your log groups, and just gives you the flexibility of organizing your logs, so you know exactly which log stream you're looking at and which log group. And you can ignore, when you're doing your queries, you can ignore the log stream. You do it based on the log groups. There's also like you have some retention policies and what you want to do with these logs. I mean, logs, you collect log for a long time, and what do you want to do with them? When you want to archive it off, or how long you want to retain these logs? There are policies, so on and so forth, which is quite good. So these are the log events. Log events are the records you write in these log streams under a log group, and you can forward these logs from anywhere into the into the CloudWatch log. So say, for example, if you're using serverless compute capacity like the Lambdas, then it's automatically, you just say Lambda logger when you're writing your code, and then it gets logged here. If you're using servers, physical servers, which in AWS world is called EC2, then you have CloudWatch agents that runs on these servers that will literally take your logs and put it out here. So any logs, CloudWatch Trail, security logs, any logs can, this is the place for your logs. Almost like, when people put logging in database, I cringe because database is not meant for that. And it depends on specific applications, but whenever I see that, I cringe. And if you have to use like querying, so on and so forth, there's things like Adiron, which I will not go into, but you can do a lot more logging. So you can look at it as a timestamp event. So this log came in at this time, so you get a time series graph, what happened when, which is quite good. There are some defaults of when you create these logs. I'm not going to go into the details of it. So that was logging. So when you log into the console, you will be able to see these logs in your log streams. But what you can also do is you can query your logs in a manner that is more meaningful, using filters, using stats. You can even visualize them. You can say, I want to see, so some of the examples, I want to see how many exceptions this particular application or system has logged, and I want to see the exceptions and trigger something out of it, or just or when you've deployed something, you want to monitor aspects of it. So there are various filters and stats that you can add. For example, I've given an example here about your provision memory, how much memory you're using, and do you have to increase your memory, so on and so forth. So this as you can see there, this is the metric, and you can see the logs here, because you can actually see your physical records in here if I hadn't done my stats. But if you do a stats, it's more for visualization. But if I remove the stats, you'll actually see the values of the records that you're interested in. Now you could convert that into you can visualize them, as you can see here. This is just an example I took this morning. We've been looking at a system, and it's going to go up to production, and we want to make sure there's no exceptions happening. That's one of the examples, and here it's the memory usage, and you see you can visualize it, and you can also add it to the dashboard. So here you can see add to dashboard. Dashboard is like any dashboards. You want to monitor, you go first there and say, hey, if an incident happened, is there something there that I can see is funny, something to spot, some visualization helps us see where we are. And so we've gone from logs, taking and filtering them and making something meaningful, getting some metrics out of it. The last step is, what do we want to do with these logs and the findings we have? So one of the things we can do is actually set alarms, and this is how we plug our systems in our PagerDuty on-call rota. So say, for example, we are monitoring a stream, and we expect the data to be coming to us every 5 seconds in the stream. So there is an alerting lambda that's running constantly, trying to see if the data is flowing through. And if the data is not able to receive the data, then it's customer facing. The customer is not able to get that data. Then what we do is we set up this, we log in our code, saying in this alerting script, writes a log, I didn't find my data, no data, no data. And this particular alarm is looking for this particular message, no data found. And we have set it up like, if you see 10 data points, which is roughly every 5 seconds, it's like 50 seconds. So if you see this in 50 seconds in the time period of 5 minutes, please let us flag us. So you can take actions from these logs and plug it in. You could send an SNS, which will send an email or a message, or send in, if we try and avoid emails, because you get too many emails, you don't look at it. So and you also want to make sure that if it's happening and it's regular, then you want to take some action. And if you hook it into PagerDuty, which expects like an email, it will create an incident, and it will notify the engineer on call. So there's two kinds of alarms that you can create. One's a metric alarm, and it's a very basic metric like you see here. All it does is, for this particular thing, I'm monitoring, and it's purely based on filter. So it's looking for something and then says, okay, I have seen this problem, and hence I want to raise an alarm. But just a metric alarm is not enough, because the system is not as simple as like, oh, I've seen this, so raise an alarm. It could be that you only raise an alarm if this is not happening, or that is not happening, or that is also true, right? So you want to be able to use the state, the alarm status of different metrics, and this is where the composite alarm comes into picture, where you create a composite alarm, and it is basically rule, if this and this and this all go alarm state, then notify the on-call engineer for it. So just take action. So if you see it in that way, you could still use a metric alarm to directly alert you, but more often our systems are not as simple as that. It's always like a composite metric alarms that will cause you to take an action. And the composite alarms can also include the metric other composite alarms as well. So that's it.
Brilliant, thank you. Any questions for Rajani?
No, it was awesome. I fight with this database problem currently in my business. I've done all the microservices to use. We are in Azure, we're not in AWS, where we use application insights, but we still have one service that puts the logs in database, and I hate it. I hate it with all my heart.
Oh, I'm glad I found another engineer. When I cringe, I go into meetings and I literally see, okay, it's like, why, I mean, just understand why you're putting a database in place. And if there are, tools that could give you the same thing and specifically meant this, just apply it. So I'm glad, Michael. Yeah.
No problem. No. It's horrible. Don't do it.
Dan, did you have something to say?
A couple of questions about, did you evaluate, for example, other tools and why you choose CloudWatch? So what drive your decision to use CloudWatch instead? I mean, you could have a Elastic, aka cluster, or so. What driven that? If you made.
You're talking about Kibana ELK. We have been to the root of Kibana ELK. It was the amount of logs we have. It was always a pain, and we had to always go and try and tweak Kibana to make it work. Oh my God, the indexes, the index has gone too big. We have to do. So a lot of work went in maintaining this ELK stacks. And I do love the visualizations Kibana brings in, but it is not very intuitive in that sense. CloudWatch, however, it can work with anything in AWS, like the services. It is there. It is sort of free apart from your storage on cloud. So it's a lot cheaper. It's infinite, it's scalable, and you don't have to pay heavily on it. And just to let you know that one of the applications we do is we save costs using this. We block customers. We see the top offenders and we just block them and help mitigate them getting into the system. I'm talking about, we get like 6 billion requests, and there are quite a lot of offenders in this, and we use log insights to very regularly block the customers, and the cost saving was substantial. It was literally a quarter, if it was hard, we brought it from 100% to quarter, like literally 4 times the saving. It was, so you can do a lot of things if you know how to use the system, and it's never given us grief at all, ever, touch wood. So we also sometimes use Adiron on top of this for more visualization, but it sits on top of this, and this is a way where your security logs, your CloudWatch logs, everything just tie in. They neatly tie in together with the rest of your infrastructure. So I mean, having investigated these tools and used them in the past, I think I'm not going to look back.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. I agree with that. The other question is about, it seems that in your architecture, you driven the metrics based on logs. So, but you have also other way to stream metrics, like using Prometheus, or I don't know. I mean, there are tons of tool on the market, New Relic, Datadog, or whatever. Question is, are you using only logs? Because I have a challenge for you if you use only that. So I'm interested to understand.
So earlier we've actually used Datadogs. We've used so we are aware of Datadogs, and it just felt like for different systems we were using different toolings, and it wasn't centralized. It wasn't like a common standard. And also by not logging it and doing things directly, there was investigations became more problematic. So what we've done as a consequence of having done all of that for like the last 10 years, we realized there's nothing wrong with generating logs and creating alerts out of these logs. And naturally, logs are the basis which will help you investigate. Yeah, so we use, there's always logs, right? And you can generate these metrics out of the log. And sometimes, yeah, you're right in saying that instead of directly doing that, we log, so we can actually come back and analyze if something goes wrong in that from based on this log. Oh, this is what happened, and that's why this thing. And it works seamlessly. We've never, touch wood, have any problems. It scales. There's no maintenance from our part, like I said. So yeah, why not? Yeah.
Sorry. May I continue,
Yeah,
or I mean,
that's fine.
too much?
I mean, it's up to Abby, but
I'm
happy to take questions.
Yeah, that's fine. We have time. You're okay.
Okay. How you mitigate the issue of dependency between your metrics and the logs? Because logs are text, and developers could put the text and define the text of the logs, right? So any developer potentially could change your logging text, and then if you have a metrics that is generated based on a query, it could break, and then you don't notice, you don't get anymore the alert and the metrics, because some developer just changed the log string, right?
Yeah, you're right. But what we do is we have a logging library in place. So you can only log using logging library wherever you are. So we work on, we adopt some, there are benefits of IIS style logging. IIS I'm talking about, which I hate, but there are some benefits of IIS logging. So we've nicked some ways of, some structure from there, and we do some logging based on it. So any developer who logs, he will invoke a function, and they like it or not, the logging will get standardized in JSON formats, where if your logging is JSON, using log insights, you can go to the particular values of these as well, not only the logs. So the logs could be like, okay, it for this particular request, it took the time, the processing time was this much, these were the values. So you could actually even look at the customer request, just like you do it in Kibana, right? From these JSON logs, you can do a similar query just like Kibana in the log insights. So yeah, to answer your question, standardize everything. Any new team member come, here's a logging library, and we do code reviews, of course, and we make sure that we all know there's, yeah, if you want to use data access layer, this is it. If you want to use logging, this is it. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you for the brilliant question. So
Can I add to that as well?
Yeah.
I think Rajani, what they said, it was absolutely right, because we will do the same. And the Cloudwords gives you the SDK as well, so you can create all the metrics and all the stuff directly. So Prometheus would just give you an interface to just, get the data, then use that interface to populate in Grafana or something else. But Cloudwords gives you all that natively outside for the AWS cloud platform. For example, in Azure, we use application insights, which is exactly the equivalent, and Google has its own as well. So you can go in two routes. You can either go and do it yourself, and you're going to struggle, like Rajina said. It's going to be a lot of fun, but it's going to be a lot of pain, and then you have to maintain it. And just be sure that the whole company is going to be on you when something goes wrong. Yeah. Or you can just delegate that to the managed service and have fun there.
Yeah, and I think this is my 20 plus, nearly 25 years of learning, that you want to spend time in engineering, not in shoveling out water out of a sinking ship, which is what these systems gives. And the more and more I advocate my team and people to move away from systems that you need to maintain versus things that come out of the box, and like the serverless in AWS. I'm an evangelist. I mean, AWS doesn't pay me for it, but I have seen how much we've shifted from, oh my God, there's an incident, we got to look, oh, we need to restart that, we need to do this. And our time, instead of engineering, really building products, we doing maintenance. But since we've taken the serverless route, believe it or not, it is also self-healing, it fixes itself. So no big deal, one blip, doesn't matter. But the one blip in the previous old system where everything was server, you have to reboot server, investigate, so on and so forth. So for us, it's been like we become a high performance team thanks to the serverless.
Fantastic. Well, with no further ado at this point, we have our third speaker for today. Adiron, over to you.
Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen. Please let me know when you can see my screen.
Yep.
Can you see my screen now?
Yep.
Awesome, thank you. So my name is Erin, and I'm going to be talking today about an important topic. But before I do, I normally do this every time I give a speech, or when I wake up, I tell myself I'm going to make a difference today. So if I can just invite you to say the same, if you can, that'll be great. So I'm saying to myself, I'm going to make a difference today, right? Okay, I'm hoping everyone wakes up feeling the same way, that they're going to make a difference in whatever part of the world they are. So thank you for doing that. So just moving to the topic is about intentional communication. Intentional communication. So this is basically a communication that helps you get the outcome you desire, not just for yourself, but for the person or people or group of people you are speaking to. So I'm going to talk about two key attributes of intentional communication. So the first one, before I tell you, let me tell you a story. This was in 2017. I was in a meeting room listening to a business analyst making a case for a new feature. And in that meeting room, we had stakeholders. So let's call this analyst Frank. Frank was just blazing through his presentation, not really paying attention to, if he's going through or not. So he was stopped in the middle of it, and the stakeholder asked him a question, but because Frank is so set in how he wants to wow the audience, right? He provided an automatic response, which was, you know what, that is a really great question. Turned around back to the PowerPoint, and he said, hence the data is talking about, and he paused. I was like, sorry, what was the question again? So what did Frank do? He broke the number one law. He did not care about what the other person wants. He just wanted to present what he's got. So the number one rule is care about what you and the other person wants. And what I've found is how it's easier for this to happen is this: just listen. So listen genuinely before giving autopilot responses. And what I mean by that is listen with interest, to understand, not just to react, to respond with, prepared responses. Now, this is a really good book, Just Listen by Mark Goldstein. A key takeaway I have from that book is be more interested than interesting. So everybody's got what they're dealing with, so be interested. It's a good book. I recommend it if you have the time to read it, right? So that takes me to my second point. But before I go there, I'll tell you another story I call the standoff. Now, what happened was the new directors come into a company, and the developers requested for new laptops, but the director refused. Why did they refuse? Because they're like 1 year into their refresh cycle, which is normally every 3 years. But the developers are simply crawling with work because laptop is slow, new technologies demand more, but the director just refused. And you won't believe what the developer did next. See what I did there? Yeah. So what did he do? The dev lead crunched the numbers of what it cost the company in terms of monetary value and the team morale for not replacing these slow laptops because they're just not productive anymore. By the time the director saw the numbers, the decision was really easy for him, which leads me to the next point of tailor your message to your audience. The director is coming, he's been more of a sales guy, he doesn't really understand technology and things like that, how it affects people, and you're telling him you have a slow laptop because you only have 4 cores or 2 cores, it just doesn't understand that. So tailor the message to the audience. Okay, so I found a research that says 86% of employees and executives, they cite lack of effective communication as the main cause for workplace failures. I'm sure we've seen the effect. Sometimes we just feel like either the people we're leading don't understand us, or we don't understand the people that are leading us. It's just down to tailoring the message so everybody can understand what you're saying and you can get the right outcomes. So there are 3 questions I normally ask before I put out information, just to help me gauge where I am with the people that I'm speaking to. So the first is, what part of my information do they care about? I might know a million things, but they might only care about one. So rather than giving the gobbledygook everywhere, just take that one, give it to them. And the second is, what would make them feel they got value? So if you listen to me, what would make you feel that you got value from me? And I'll try and put that in my communication. And the final thing was, how can someone use the information you give them as part of their work? In the case of the director, he was able to take the numbers and justify the financial cost for refreshing these laptops within a 3-year cycle. So the first is, what part people care about, what would represent value for them, and how can they use the information. I end with an example. Now, this is redacted, but very similar stuff a friend sent to me. He was going to present to a non-technical board after a major production disaster. If you see what's on there, is really heavily technical. I'm not sure how much they'll be able to digest it. So we tried to rephrase it to become this, right? So hoping that the non-technical people will be able to digest, this kind of information without thinking too hard about the tech on the line, and whatever it is that they wanted to ask for is most likely to get it. So I end again with where I started from. Intentional communication, be interested, not interesting, tailor your message to your audience. You do that, and hopefully people won't look like this at the end of your conversation with them. So with that, I say thank you very much for listening, and I'm happy to take questions.
That was brilliant. Thank you. Any questions for Adiron? Go for
Yes,
it.
I have one. That was really brilliant, and it's something that we all know about. Listen, and I like the fact that you said be interested, not interesting, and it's a nice reminder of what you need to be doing. I have been trying this, Erin, but with, I don't know, more or less success. I don't know if I'm successful, but I try and listen, and I try and see how I can be more interested in what people are saying. Do you have any tips for? It may sound daft, but I really struggle with this. So, do you have any tips where it could help me? Be interested and less interesting.
Yes, absolutely. So we all heard this phrase that try to walk in the other person's shoes, right? It's really commonplace, but it's hard to kind of conceptualize what that means. So the first thing to do in terms of walking in somebody's shoes is suspend judgment, right? And that way you're hearing the person with not in a concocted manner, but in a plain manner. You're hearing what they're saying to you, and you're trying to respond based on what you're hearing. So that way you ask like clarifying questions. So maybe, for example, you might have a team member in mind that's always late to meetings, or maybe is the one that is 1 day late for everything, and you have something you really want to deliver, and you ask the question, is this ready? And the first thing it says is no. The question you ask yourself is, what will you be feeling at that point? Are you already thinking, there we go, the slacker again, this is important to me, he hasn't done it, right? And based on that, your response is coming out unconsciously. But in that point, what I'll do, just to answer your question, is, okay, I'll just ask him, why? Is there something that hindered you or is blocking you from getting this done? So that way I'm inviting the person, right, to give me reasons or to help me understand. Maybe the kind of assignment I gave them is even beyond them, and there was no way for them to ask me for help. And the only way they could do that was just not do it, right? So that's what it means for me, like really listening without judgment. That's what I strive to do on a daily basis.
Thank you.
I don't know if that answered your question, Rajani.
Yeah, it did. so I'm giving an example. Like yesterday, I was with this head teacher, and she was sitting next to me, so we're having this conversation, and I absolutely tried to listen to her and see where she's coming from, and have more clarifying leading questions. And I think there was a moment I was like, I was struggling to even keep up the conversation, like, yeah, where's this conversation going? So I think I'll keep in mind about, suspending, jumping into conclusions, suspend judgment, and further ask clarifying questions. Is there any other tip that you can give me where I'm feeling, if they are explaining their story, that I know that I shouldn't jump and share my story, but be with them and listen to their story. I've been practicing this, but I still struggle because I'm naturally,
Well, perfection is an illusion, right? We're all learning. So something I told a developer that's joined the team, he messaged me, was like, look, I'm a junior developer, I don't know what I'm doing, or I'm trying to learn. I said, listen, none of us have lived before. We are experiencing life for the first time, so relax, right? So it's really bringing somebody into that level to say, you know what, I am with you. So when you're sharing your story, you're actually like, just feel like you're the one saying the story. What are the kind of things you hope the other person will get from what you're saying? And if you're not getting that, then that gives you the kind of questions that you ask that is really meaningful to the other person. So for example, if I was speaking to the teacher that you're talking about, as you were saying that story, what was going on in my head was trying to be in that teacher's shoes. Maybe they've spoken to parents before, where if they just don't blab their way through, the conversation is not going anywhere. So they're just speaking to you as a matter of tick box exercise that, yeah, we spoke to 50 parents this week and stuff like that, right? Maybe that's what they're doing. So for me, I would try to help and come in and say, look, it seems like maybe you've spoken to a lot of parents before that have given you grief or weren't listening to you or make you feel like you're responsible for the behavior of their children and stuff like that. I understand that might be the scenario, but what I'm really looking for is I genuinely want to understand what you think about my child, or how does the behavior affect us, you understand? So that way I'm inviting that teacher, to be an ally with me. And I'm not doing the I'm a parent, you're a teacher kind of thing. Like, we're talking about one specific outcome. Both of us want the best for the child. So that's the way I would approach it.
Yeah, and luckily it was not about the conversation was not about my child. She was talking about herself and how she thought she had a child, that her career is over, and here she is as a head teacher. So we were talking about, about that, and
Yeah, that's see what I did there. I made the mistake. I was just telling you, I made a generalized assumption, right? That's what it is. I should have clarified. So there you go. We just practiced it. So, well, I hope that helped.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Adiron?
No, I think it's really interesting. Just to add, the concept of suspended judgment is coming from the Stoics, from Stoic philosophy. And also, one of my ancestors, Plutarch, wrote a book on listening 2,000 years ago. Okay. If anyone is interested.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, because
share in the comments the name of the book and stuff. Yeah.
Well, it's hard to translate in English. It's called On Listening, and they wrote it so when people will go to attend philosophy lectures, they had to know a few things. It's like before I started reading books, the first book I read was How to Read a Book. And it does help. So I think you're 100% on point, Adrian.
Thank you.
I have put the link for the book you recommended, Adiron, in the chat. So if anybody wants to get it, that's the Amazon link, but you can find it. Other retailers are available. So yeah, that's there. Oh, fab. Thank you.
Let me see if I can find the other one.
Yeah, great. Thank you. While you're finding that, I would just like to say thank you so much. Tom had to drop off, but thank you to Tom and Rajani and Adiron for being willing to speak to us today. It was really interesting to hear what each of you had to share. That was amazing. If any of you in the audience, as it were, would like to do one of these lightning talks, but you don't know how to get started, RecWorks do also run workshop sessions for how to write your first talk from scratch in 15 minutes. So if you're interested in that, ping me a message and I can let you know when the next workshop is running. I'm more than happy to connect you up with that way as well. So if you're interested in giving one of these talks yourselves, yeah, ping me a message and we'll go from there. Because I like the workshops too, because they're really interesting and you get lots of ideas and participation as well. So always worth going to. And that is our lightning talk session for today. Thank you everybody for coming and joining us. It's been really great to see you, and I'm so glad we've had some great conversation generated from these talks as well, which has been brilliant, I think, and really helpful for me as well. So yeah, great to see you all. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Michael, have we found that other link? You have. Brilliant. Thank you.
I haven't found the last one. There's one more, but if I find it, I'll put it on the Slack channel.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, so we'll be able to find it from there and forward it on as well. So excellent. Well, thank you so much everybody for joining me today, and we will hopefully see you at one of our other future events. Enjoy the rest of your day and have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.